This is Sam Cutler, and you're listening to Icon Fetch.
Welcome to Icon Fetch, where the legends of music are found. I am your host, Tony Peters, and our guest this week is the voice behind such hits as Listen to the Music, China Grove, and Long Train Runnin'. We want to welcome to the program Tom Johnston of the Doobie Brothers. How are you, Tom?
I am good. How's everybody doing there?
We're doing good. We're doing good, man. Good to have you on the show. Now, you guys have a brand spanking new album out called World Gone Crazy. Now, this album reunites you with Ted Templeman, the guy that produced all your albums from the 70s. Why don't you tell me about that?
Well, we worked with Ted on this record. Ted was instrumental in picking the tunes that are used on the album and was also extremely helpful in lyric direction. You'd come in with your lyrics and say, well, what if you tried, just like the old days, what if you tried this, what if you tried that? And it worked out really well, and I think the song selection to me is probably the most important thing a producer could do, because before we get started, rather than going in and trying to figure out, well, that's not going to work, well, we try another song in the studio, it was all figured out before we went in, and that to me is super important.
Gotta get back, going back to the chateau, going back to the chateau, gotta get back.
Did you have a big pile of songs in which you were kind of whittling down, or?
Yeah, we did. We started this in 2005, and essentially we didn't start recording until late 2007, early 2008. And just for instance, what I did, Ted came out to my house, and I've got like 50, 60 songs sitting there on my hard drive.
Wow.
And we didn't go through all of them. So I whittled, I said, some of these, forget it, they don't belong, they don't work for this band, because I write all the time just for fun. But, I played stuff that I thought would work for the group, and some of the songs I said, this would be great, I really like this song. And then we went through all the tunes, and he said, yeah, that one would be great, what if you did this or that, and so that was how that process went for me. And he went through the same deal with Pat, only, Pat is playing guitar and showing him stuff with words and that kind of thing. And so that was a very important, like I said, a very important part of the process on this album.
What was it like to get into the recording studio? Was there kind of a just like old times, like back in the 70s, or was it a totally different sort of process? Obviously the technology has changed a lot since you worked with Ted back. I think the last album you worked on with him was like 1980 or something like that. So.
The last album I worked on was 79, but that was a solo album.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's changed. It changed quite a bit, and there's two major. Yeah, the technology's changed. The days of the tape machine kind of gone to the wayside, except for a few folks in this biz. Everybody's using Pro Tools. That's the new standard. And thank you. I'm close to a bar. Sorry. The other thing is that we've all done this a lot. We're all older now.
Everybody shout, oh, to your brother. Everybody sing, let the spirit fly away. Shout to your brother, so all the people have a brighter day.
I have a studio at the house. John has his studio at the house. I use software to do all kinds of stuff. I can play the drums, I can play the bass, I can do all the vocals, I can do all the guitar, strings, whatever. So when I bring a song in, it's totally fleshed out. It's not, here's the chords on a guitar, and I haven't got the words yet like I used to be. It's, or if I did have the words. So that's all changed a great deal. And I think everybody is much more into the quality of the tune and developing the tune. In the old days, we would come in usually off the road after doing, we toured a lot. We did like 170, 180 and more shows a year. And then we would do an album every year. So if we weren't on the road, we were in the studio. So by the time we got to the studio, everybody was like trying to look at it as time off. And Ted was directing everything, because you come in on certain days, or you guys, I'll need all you guys in on a certain day. Let's cut all the tracks. This time around, everybody was there, and it was cut. A lot of the tracks were basically we did most of the basic tracks, in Sunset Sound, and then we started working on them. Then we'd pull away for a while.
When the rain begins to fall, just remember that you'll never be that far from home.
And we'd examine the song, and that's where, to me, the blessing of how long it took to do this album comes to play, because there was a couple of songs I was very discouraged with, and I completely rebuilt them in another town, in another studio, with bringing Billy Payne in and having him redo like a bunch of the keyboard parts. And it gave us the time to do that because we were paying for the album ourselves. That's another big difference. It wasn't the record company saying, well, we've got to have it by such and such date.
Right.
So we just did it when we did it, and that's why it took as long as it did. But it worked out for the best. I think we got the best thing for every song that's on the album. Everything got the best treatment it could have, and got changed several times in some cases. And I think that really made a huge difference.
You've got a really diverse set of songs on this record. You know, there's rock, there's country, there's blues, there's Latin influences. You know, and was there ever a time where you're going through these tracks and going, hey, this just doesn't sound like the Doobie Brothers, or does that really not matter anymore?
Well, I'll be honest with you. We never thought like that anyway, ever.
Okay, good.
Basically, whoever brought this, we brought in our songs, and we picked out the songs we wanted to use. We've never been a concept band. You know, the Doobie Brothers sound is made up of a lot of different sounds anyway. We have influences. So I consider us basically the quintessential American band. We have blues in our background. We have country in our background a little bit. We have kicking. We have, you know, in a bluegrass way almost. We have R&B. I mean, really all-out R&B. And rock and roll. So you stick all that together, and, you know, whatever your influences were as a writer, as you were coming up, come out in the various songs that you write. You know, Pat came from a folk blues background, and I came from a blues and R&B and rock and roll background. And you know, fuse all that together, the harmonies, the guitar styles that you mesh together. And on this album, I wrote 3 songs on keyboard, so that's one of the reasons that there's a difference too. And the Latin thing probably comes from the fact that when I was growing up, I played in a couple of Latin bands.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Fact, but I'm thinking that might have had something to do with it.
Right. Okay. The first single from the record is actually your first single. It's a re-recording of "Nobody," the song you guys did back in 1971. Who came up with the idea to revisit that one?
That was Ted's idea. And I'll be honest with you, the first time I went, why? Because, number one, it's 40 years old almost, or it is 40 years old now. But number two, the original version of it, it was okay, but it wasn't that great. That's what bugged Teddy, because that was one of the songs that sold us to him and Warner Brothers when we first got signed by Warner Brothers way back when, in 1970. And so he said, you know what, this thing never got a fair shot. This is a great tune. We can make this, we can make this what it's supposed to be, and it's never gotten there. So he said, okay. So what we did is we just tore it apart. We completely took it down to the bottom. Started with the guitar chord, you know, the chunka guitar thing, and I suggested to John, I said, what if you put a picking part over the top? Sort of like a certain song, I'm not going to mention right now, but and he came up with this great idea that took it even farther than that. And then the drums got completely reconstructed. The bass part got reconstructed. And then John played some slide parts over it. I mean, the song, as it got built, got completely revamped.
Nobody gonna take my love away from me.
And the front end of the song that That was Pat's idea, that the entrance to the tune, those chord changes, and then John playing slide over it on a dobro. And it really took the song to another place. And so we were really happy with it when we got it done.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an improvement. And
That was right.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely improved. Now, I mean, that's interesting because, you've revisited that song. I mean, you guys have a huge catalog of material to which to draw on. I mean, and you play a lot of great songs in concert. Have you thought about maybe revisiting other tracks like that and trying to redo them, or is that maybe a one-shot deal?
We've never constantly sat around. I mean, I've heard anybody say, let's redo the next thing, except for one song, but we've never done it. We were talking about doing that with Disciple at one point, but we haven't got around to doing it. I kind of fooled around with it in the studio and kind of revamped it a little bit. We didn't go after it. So it's not something that comes up on a regular basis. I think the only reason it happened at all is because Ted said, I really want to redo this song because he always liked the song and wanted to hear it brought to its best extension, I guess, for lack of a better word. Right.
Now, why don't you tell me about a couple of the tracks from the CD? World Gone Crazy. It's the title cut and a rather interesting title. Where'd you come up with that one?
That's one of those songs that there's golden moments as a writer. They write themselves. You don't have to do anything. You just sit there and it just happens.
Huh.
I wrote the drum pattern first. Then I wrote the piano parts on it and the chord structure of it. And then I put the bass on. And then I wrote the words. And the song just built itself. And songs like that to me are magical. It's almost like you're channeling somebody else's energy. Or there's some other, I don't know, ether sphere out there telling you what to do or something.
Right.
But it's like an effortless thing to do. It's such a pleasure as a writer to have those songs that come along like that. You don't have to what are the words? What words can I use? They just all of a sudden the words just came. There they were. And it's a New Orleans idea. It's an old drum pattern from several different guys, but one comes to mind is Fats Domino, and a ton of people have used that drum pattern. But then the horns I used on it later on are like typical. Well, I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're the kind of horn parts that Alan Toussaint would write or something like that.
Right.
And it's basically a story about a guy living in the streets, not living in the streets. He has a place to live. And his daily struggle to keep from having to live in the streets, and then his brother getting arrested and all that kind of stuff. And you think, wow, sounds like a downer. But when we play that live, people get up and dance and have the best time. It's infectious. It's got a really infectious feel to it. It's just a really good feeling song.
Working real hard in the heart of the city. Noonday sun, feeling hot and sweaty. Trying to make my pay, trying to make my monthly rent.
Now tell me, you've got some guests on the record as well. Michael McDonald is on one of the tracks. How did you? You stay in contact with Mike? Was that one of those things you had the song and you said, hey, this sounds really good for his vocal? How did that work out?
Pat's the one that wrote that song, and the vocals were done in Hawaii. This
Really?
album was done all over the place.
Really? Okay.
That's the thing that's changed, and that's one of the great things about Pro Tools, is that he would take a track that maybe he's got the basic track cut and some guitars and stuff on it, and maybe even vocals, but he goes back over to Hawaii in a studio over there and does some other stuff. And in this case, it was that Mike was over in Maui because he has a place over there too that he goes to sometimes, and he and Pat get together. And Pat said, "How about if you come in and I'd like to have you and Amy, his wife, sing on this song." And so they did.
Baby, I know you don't have to say anymore. We can do anything you want tonight, as long as we don't say goodbye.
We run into Mike from time to time, and up till a couple of years ago, we were playing about 3 or 4 shows with him a year. It hasn't been happening for the last couple of years for whatever reason. It's not for anything. There is no main reason. It's just, life. He's
Right.
off doing what he's doing, and we're off doing what we're doing. But,
Right.
So that's how that happened, and I can't tell you anything more in depth because I wasn't there.
Right. Okay.